co-founder with Henry. I serve as the president, basically the program's chair. There's some other little titles in there, but I handle operations, programs, and the overall running of the organization.
Well, I am M, period. It's just an initial, Henry with a Y, just like a boy. Van Ostrin, that's 2 words. I have said my name that way all my life. I co-founded with Trisha. I act as vice president and basically like the chief fundraising officer.
Mm.
And a lot of administrative back end helping out Trisha when she needs it. You know, we do surveys before and after every program, so handling that kind of stuff. And social media.
Wearing a lot of hats, which that seems to fit.
Well, we're a small organization. You got to wear a lot of hats.
Exactly. That's one of the things we talk about there. So I used to do youth programs, and of course, like you got to do so many different things to get something off the ground and keep it running. So that's awesome. Tell me how you guys connected and how this idea came about.
So way before we co-founded Paws for Kids for Paws, we knew each other in other lives. I was a president of a association local chapter, and she was handling association chapters and things. So we'd known each other for decades now, and we hit it off right away because of animals. I grew up with a menagerie. Henry has a menagerie right now. So, you know, we've known each other for decades, and over that time, Henry kept saying, hey, I think someday we're going to start a nonprofit together, though she didn't know what it would be. And I was like, okay, sure, Henry. It's one of Henry's ideas. We'll see what happens. Okay, that'd be great if it works. So we were talking on the phone one day, and she was relating a story about her neighbor kid and having her neighbor kid help train her dog because it seemed to help with his ADHD. The light bulb when she was saying that came on to me, and I said, that's what we need to do.
You know, and my response was, what?
Yeah. I said, this is what we need to do. And she's like, huh? I said, we need to help neurodivergent kids by having them learn how to work with dogs. You know, we know how relationships with animals are powerful and transformative for so many people. They were for us, and it just made a lot of sense, and it inspired us. So then we said, yeah, this is the idea. Now how do we make it real? And that's how we got started.
Well, that's awesome. So when you're looking at one, obviously you saw the impact immediately, like you knew it would work. So, but what drew you specifically to working with neurodivergent young people, right? Because you could work with neurodivergent adults or, but like when you think about young people and then specifically neurodivergent, how does that really, why does that matter so much to you?
Well, for me, I wasn't diagnosed with ADHD until I was 50. Because girls didn't have it when I was growing up. It was a boy thing, which was, not the case. But just to get clear, we'll work with all kids. We just have a focus on what we call our square peg kids, the kids who are having trouble finding a place to fit in, whether it's LGBTQ, whether it's neurodivergent, autistic, ADHD, dyslexic, whatever. We just have a love for spicy brains and kids that and I think kids more than adults, because I think Trisha will agree with this. We're being the people we needed growing up.
Yeah. We both are a little different. My brain definitely works differently, and it works differently than Henry's.
Mm-hmm.
And then we balance each other well that way. But we both used animals in our youth to fill our lives, and it helped me a lot. And while it's good to work with adults, we just see being able to get them started earlier and get them through that time when they may be struggling, so they don't struggle as much, they don't feel as alone, that they start getting these skills in a way that's better for them. Some kids really learn better by working with the dog, even though it might seem counterintuitive to some people. There's a power there, and there's that joy, and that human animal bond is so strong that it automatically seems to help kids right away. And it's also kind of fun, you know,
It also keeps them engaged longer.
yeah.
Some of these things that you might be doing, you know, you just zone out when it's just you and the notebook kind of thing.
The other thing that is interesting about dogs is as the kids start to work with the dogs, if maybe they're the quiet ones that aren't getting a lot of attention or any recognition in school, but they start working with the dog, and their other kids see them working with the dog, and all of a sudden they're getting attention, and they're getting some focus, and they're getting some street cred, so to speak, you know. And I mean, Henry saw that with the same youth we were talking about, her neighbor.
Can I tell you his
Yep.
the quickest part of his story, besides him coming over to help me with my dogs? One of my dogs, she's on our website, was a big, beautiful, solid white Siberian Husky. Absolutely freaking gorgeous. The day before he started middle school, in a school he knew no one because they had moved in just a couple months earlier. So he knew nobody, and he was going to this giant middle school. The day before, I asked him, so what time you walk into school in the morning? And he told me and said, oh, that's the time I usually walk drama. We'll walk with you. And he was walking the whole way, head down, mumbling, because he was scared. About 4 blocks from the school, I handed him her leash. And his shoulders went up, and his head went up, and his shoulders went back. And here is this 75-pound gorgeous dog staring at him and looking up at him adoringly for everything. So we get to school. He gives me back the leash. When he gets out of school in the afternoon, he didn't go home. He ran to my house. You won't believe it. So many kids asked me if she was mine. 4 teachers asked me. The principal came up and asked me about her. And I said, and what did you tell them? And his shoulders straightened up, and he said, I said, technically she's not mine, but I helped train her. It was a different kid. Just absolutely a different kid. And this is when the light bulb went off for Tricia and went, Henry, you just found our mission, right? You know that, right? And I went, huh?
Yeah.
So that's where it kind of started.
Man, that's an amazing story. Like, it's interesting because the thing I love is because there's so many like niches in a way. Like, I would never, from my perspective, understand what an animal, you know, or a dog specifically, pet, etc., could do for a young person. So I would have never even thought like, oh, it's a confidence builder. It's a way to almost like an icebreaker in a way to make it easier for people to get to know or feel more comfortable. So I'm sure there's a lot of other benefits, right? So tell me, and you guys already started to talk about it, but tell me about some of the what are some of the results that you've seen, you know, maybe across the board that working with pets has helped young people, you know, the young people you work with?
So they get more confidence. They're also, by learning to work with dogs, they're also getting more skills. And we've tried to build our programs in, and we try to make sure that they work, like I said, we try to make sure they work for neurodivergent, because when it works for them, they get it, and other traditional things may not, but it also works for the other kids. So kids get kind of that emotional benefit that just has been shown with pet therapy, just getting to pet a dog. They get that, eases their stress, things like that. I've seen examples of that with some of the programs we've run have been with recent immigrants, some of whom made long treks to get here, and they may have had trauma from being in detention. Who knows? We don't even know all of their stories. We just know that they had a long journey to come here and get asylum, basically. So there's a quick emotional benefits, even kids who don't seem like they're going to open up. We had one teacher say that after just 1 or 2 sessions, this one young gal who was constantly quiet and sullen all the time in class, as soon as she started coming to the program, all of a sudden she would come out of that and she would be joyful. She would be smiling. She'd interact with her coworkers. So that just that emotional benefit is one. The other thing is to work with a dog, you're communicating across a different language. You know, you don't have a common language. Dogs have a language, but it's not how we do it. So you have to learn how to communicate with another being, and that translates into communicating with other people too. So it adds, that's one aspect of social emotional learning. You have to learn to pick up on cues that you wouldn't have otherwise thought about, and you have to watch the dog. A lot of dog is body language and physical features, the way they hold themselves, the way they react. So that helps you with anybody. And then we also, in how training dogs, we incorporate a lot of scientific method, like breaking down the task, break it down into pieces, test and verify, try something more than once. You've got to repeat it, keep count of how many times the dog does it the way you want it versus missing. Keep count on what goes wrong, keep track of those things. So there's things like that.
Make a plan, keep the plan.
Yeah, they also have
plan.
Yeah, they also get into some team dynamics, because they do have to work together in some of the activities, a lot of the activities, and they're right there. Sometimes we don't have one dog per kid, sometimes we do. They have to learn to take turns, they have to learn to work with each other, they have to learn to encourage each other and help each other. It especially, as they move through the program, the more senior students we engage them, in addition to learning their more advanced lessons, we engage them in helping the kids who aren't as far along in the program. Let's see, there's a few other things we could think of. There's like, they learn structure, they learn positive reinforcement, they learn consistency. We talked about confidence already. Then with the dogs actually get
Leadership too.
Pardon?
Passionate leadership.
Leadership, yes. Why don't you talk
Very
about that a little, Henry?
Hmm?
Why don't you talk a little about compassionate leadership?
Well, one of the things with the kid next door, that I realized that he was constantly being punished for things. And he did not know that there was a difference between correction and punishment. So that's something we focus on, is that you're not punishing a dog, you're redirecting and correcting its behavior. And that should work for people too. So it's being compassionate, understanding, trying to make like Tricia said about communication across a language barrier, trying to understand the other being's experience and meeting them there. And that's compassionate leadership as far as I'm concerned. You want to be a leader, you have to understand the people you're leading, or the dogs you're leading. So, or the cats, if it's the case, but we haven't gotten there yet. But compassionate leadership, I think, is really a hallmark for us. It just comes out of so much of the other stuff that we do.
Yeah, that's a yeah, I'm glad you talked about that more too, because that's a good point when you talked about punishment versus correction. And I'm also imagining when it comes to neurodivergence, first off, a lot of people aren't equipped to even know how to deal with it. So I'm sure the young people you work with already experience a lot of different negative behaviors coming their way, I would assume. And so my son is ADHD, so I know, and I've had to learn a lot, because I'm the other way. I'm hyper focused. I don't have really trouble focusing, so it's always like, man, how do I communicate? How do I, work through this? And so, so having to work through that, understand patience, understand how he works, so I can imagine how that is at a broad scale, especially for kids who may not have the support at home, etc. So, diving in a little bit, talking about their challenges, I can't find it, I was looking for it on the website, but I saw something that spoke about the challenges, kids face in school, where they may be, I think it says something like 30% more likely to drop out of high school, or there were some stats around that.
Stats.
Yeah, so I didn't even realize. I was like, wow, that's a really high numbers, more than I expected. So talk about a little bit, I'm guessing with the program, one, that's one of the goals that you're trying to help like kids like Henry, when you mentioned the story, obviously that young person felt really comfortable because, they got a chance to either fit in at the school and maybe gain friendships or whatever. Is that kind of part of how all that works together? Does that help them stay in school, or maybe you can describe it, whatever
It
makes
does.
sense. Yeah.
One of the schools specifically wanted us to work on the absenteeism factor, and that was especially with their recent immigrants. And they found that the after school programs, if they're in one that they really enjoy, it gives them a reason to come to school so they can go to that. If they're not there for a school day, they don't get to go to the after school program. So that there is some of that. It motivates them to want to stay, want to do something different, to do that extra bit. We have it's not our explicit goal to reduce dropout rates and things like that, because we're one factor, but we believe from what we're seeing that we're contributing. We haven't figured out how to measure our contribution yet in that regard. However, we are anecdotally seeing that, and we do see the kids who want to come and want to be there and want to participate. One of our kids, this is the first thing she signs up for, and she gets really frustrated. She's in a fair number of things. She's pretty active, and she gets really frustrated if she can't get to her Paws classes. She's like, it's okay if she can get to most of it and has to leave a little early because she's got to go to swimming or something. But that's like the first camp she signs up for is ours. It's just that kind of engagement is what we hope to see with them, that it's something that drives them, that they're passionate about, and they want to go. There's some kids that's not their passion. Their passion is something else, and that's great. We don't expect to fill that need for everybody. We're especially looking for those ones who haven't found a niche, who don't have that place where they feel like they belong, and we're here. And so we get some that are very active and want to be in our programs. We also get some that haven't found satisfaction in those other activities, and ours is a nice home for them.
That's great. So, and then tell me about the other side, because it seems like you guys are helping both the young people and dogs, right? So tell me about how the students are helping the dogs as well. Like, talk about that process and what that's doing for either community or the dogs themselves, et cetera.
Do you want to take that, Henry?
Sure. Well, we are in the early stages of that part of the process. The first thing we do with the kids is we work with them for a while with known dogs, therapy dogs, or dogs that are well known to us for their temperament. Because the first things we have to teach them is how to be safe, how to read a dog's body language, and they don't want to be touched, when they don't want to be approached. And so working with the shelter dogs is still in the process. We're not doing as many shelter dogs yet, but our anticipation is that we'll see less dogs returned to the shelter for behavior problems. Only about 4% of dogs in this country are professionally trained. And so many of the reasons dogs are put in a shelter are for behavioral problems that could be fixed just by training. So if the kids are the trainers and they want to be there, they want to train their dog, they love teaching them how to do things, you're going to see less dogs having problems, less dogs being returned. And honestly, once they start working with shelter dogs, you're going to see more dogs being adoptable. Hey, this dog is already trained, sit, stay, come, all of these things. You just have to learn what he learns, and then he's going to be the perfect dog for you because he's going to know how to behave in a home. So we expect to see an uptick in that as we grow.
How long? So I think I saw that on the website, but also talk about when you were established, how long you've been operating. Just talk a little bit more about that.
So we were
timeline.
we were established in late 2017. We got our 501c3 in 2018, late 2018. So it was about a year after we got our 501c3. That said, we had a slow ramp up, partly because of things going on 2019 for me personally with family. And then we were all ready to get going in 2020. And you kind of know what happened then, right? So we were raring to go. We had only done a few small events and we were positioned, and then everything went to a screeching halt because we might have been able to figure out more virtual things if we'd had kind of a rhythm going already. We might have found some things, but the real value of being with dogs is the actual interaction with them. So it's a little harder. So we kind of just then started working on building things. And then we've been, after the pandemic ended enough to open up, and then we started getting out. We started first with the park district near me, and then we moved into some school districts. And so that was, so really 22, 23, 20, and now 24.
End of 22.
End of 22, we were really starting to get some programs out there. And so it feels like we're younger than the calendar says we are, for a lot of reasons. Like everybody else, like a lot of people from the pandemic, we were a little behind.
Yeah, pandemic was hard. It was hard on everyone.
And you know what? That also informs a lot of what we do, because we know, I know I see the change in kids all the time. My day job is with a nonprofit, but we have a toy store and I manage the toy store. And I see kids are different now. They're less open.
Yeah.
And kids born during the pandemic or coming into toddler age during shutdown are incredibly shy. So I think even as the years go on, these kids are not catching up as quickly as we'd hoped.
Mhm.
And I think as the years go on, we will see a lot of those kids on our programs as well, and finding their footing, because the power of dogs, it's just that bond can bring you out of yourself.
That's it really does, like what you just said hits home too, because it was during the pandemic where we got dogs, and the main reason was for my son, because we felt like he needed something to, you know what I'm saying, like to connect with, and I just saw how he kind of flourished a bit. And also it's interesting because you also mentioned like there's a responsibility to it as well, and so connecting that way, and the isolation, there's so much isolation. So anyway, I definitely relate to that. So I'll follow just like a couple more questions because I know we're about to hit time. But so first question, just kind of ended off, where do you envision the organization going next? Like where do you see it growing to?
New Jersey.
Yeah.
New Jersey, yeah. We started by me because I had more flexibility in my schedule and I was leading programs anyway. And so I'm in Chicagoland area, near suburbs. I'm near O'Hare, and we're started to branch out a little bit around here. So we've hit a few suburbs. We've got a grant to try to get more other regions of this county that I'm in. Our next step is to start branching out. We're going to first start with Henry, near Henry in New Jersey. She's right near Philly. So we want to get her, we're getting her set up to start running programs. And then I'm going to also be looking at programs in Wisconsin and things like that. The lot of that has to do with enabling and getting leaders who can run our programs so that, I don't always have to be there. That's not our goal. Our goal is to have us lead the organization, not do everything. So we're working on getting training and train the trainer and coaching set up for a broader group of people to run the programs. That allows us to do it in more locations. It's only so many after school programs you can run in a week if you're just a few people. So
Yeah.
we're trying to enable that. And we see, definitely regionally around both of us. And then, at some time we're going to be taking over the world.
What message would you share with the community about why, to support your organization and why what you're doing is so important?
Do you want to start, Henry?
Well, of course, funds are always important. I mean, that's a given, right? We all know nonprofits need money. We also need volunteers to help run our programs, people who love kids and dogs. Maybe one more than the other, but they need to love both. But we also, as Tricia was saying, we need people to facilitate our programs. So we need people who are inspired by the mission to give kids a place to shine. All right, kids, kids and dogs, it's a natural. So using it as a way to educate them and give them some life skills, it's a no-brainer, but you have to be inspired by it. And you have to be willing to meet the kids where they are and the dogs.
And
to go into working with shelter dogs, you got to be able to assess where a dog is and meet them there. You can't teach calculus when you haven't taught arithmetic.
And I guess to add to that, think about the value and what in your own community, if these youth who are maybe fallen through the cracks somewhere, all of a sudden we've got that many more compassionate leaders, strong community leaders. We see these youth becoming leaders in their own communities. Yep. And that right there is going to help your community and your family and your neighborhood and your block go to different levels, and at this, and while doing that, some of them and others who want to support them, we're scaling up and trying to build an actual team and build our capacity. So we know we're not just going to be volunteers. So we're looking for hopefully even some of the kids who've been in the program as they become adults, and also some of their family members and some of the people they know, helping build that actual team and building the organization. So we see it as worth moving forward, and we have to get over, to scale up, we've got to get over the next hurdle. So we need people. We see that as we need people and we need support, because it's going to make it worthwhile so that we can easily move to wherever you want it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I can definitely see.
I have one quick story to tell you about a family with a dog. And Tricia, I think you'll remember this. This is early on. After we survey both before and after, parents, kids, teachers, whoever, all of it. And one father wrote back, "My kids have been wanting a dog. My wife has been wanting a dog. I was against it. And now my kids are telling me what I'm doing wrong with the neighbor's dog. I think we're ready." So we know at least a couple dogs have gotten adopted because of us. So
and they did get a dog. I have met that dog.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that shows impact. Well,